whether we do have the sufficient funding to achieve all the SDGs. Well, from the very beginning, we knew we didn't have it. That was a very basic fact, and the governments needed to add more, but also we needed to look for innovative ways that mobilizes other financial resources from the government and from the governments as well as the companies and the local businesses and local initiatives themselves. They need to work on that. That's why in my fundraising business, I have two domains of work. One is diversification of fundings, and the other one is increasing self-financing, because as long as all the projects are dependent on one resource, like the governmental resources, for instance, if a crisis like COVID happens and the government decides to shift the attention, the project will go down. And as long as the existence of our project is continuously based on the funding that we receive, it would never become sustainable, let alone durable. So that's why we need to look into self-financing of our projects. And in this way, we can make sure that in a long run, we can manage to keep up the project, basically. I decided to start a PhD on this subject because of a very big frustration that I felt throughout my work as a practitioner in development aid sector. I've been working in the field for about 15 years, and the last 10 years of it has been very much focused on fundraising. And I noticed that I raise funds for an organization, they spend it, and when the money is finished, the project is gone. There is no follow-up in terms of the sustainability of the project. And I noticed as long as this is always about gaining more money and injecting more money to the project and never becoming sustainable, then it became a frustration for me. Another part of it was that I realized I worked for War Child for a while, and I always give this example that War Child is one of the organizations is doing a very great job when it comes to supporting the children in a psychosocial domain. And despite the very great, very efficient, very professional setup that they have, if they want to reach all the children who need their support, they have to do whatever they are doing thousandfold more. Thousandfolds. We don't have the money for that. We don't have the resources for that. We don't have the time for that. So it's not about doing more of what we are doing. It's about doing more on the impact level of what we are doing, scaling the impact of our work. And these combined pushed me towards digging deeper on the subject, on how we can scale impact, not just bigger, but at a higher level. And that's why I came up with this research. And luckily, I had Professor Rob van Tulder, who took me as his student, and he became my promoter. And that's why I can research this subject at the moment. Absolutely, there is a lot of schools of thought on how to find your partners. And there is a difference between partners and stakeholders, of course. When we talk about finding the right partners, it's about the target that you want to achieve and who needs to be there in order to help you to get there. And for instance, if you want to mobilize a neighborhood to switch from natural gas, to solar panels for their electricity and for their what is verwarming, heating. Thank you. You need to mobilize the whole neighborhood, because you cannot cut off one house only from that. It's much more cost effective, for instance. And to mobilize that neighborhood, you need to find the neighbor, for instance, who can talk to everybody else in the row and bring them on board. So that person is one of your partners in that work. And you need to work with the municipalities, of course. You need to work with the companies who are able to offer. So there are ways of identifying who are your partners for a specific project. Partnership Resource Center, where Professor Rob van Toeder is the academic director, they have developed over the years very different tools on partnership development, how to develop it and how to assess it at a later stage. When you define a memorandum of understanding, when you sign a consortium together, the responsibilities and the commitments are quite clearly stated, and based on that, you would you have built this trust that you're going to work together for the duration of the project. Of course, there is always unforeseen circumstances. I've seen, for instance, in projects, one of the partners goes bankrupt. What do we do for that? And that's where provisions come into place that if this happens, we will do this, and so on and so forth. I have theoretically developed a model on how we can start a project as a Dutch CSO with a local partner and then exit the project in a way that the local partner is in charge and the project stays sustainable. I've done it theoretically, but whether it hasn't been implemented by any actual program. And I hope at the end of my research, the ministry takes the recommendations from this research and applies it to the partnership that it already has at the moment or in the future, and test it to see whether it works or not. Maybe in this 1 or 2 minutes, I can walk you to the third stage, third phase of my work, and that's called scaling. And the way I see it is that when we got to the point in our implementation that we say we achieved something and we celebrate it, then we need to go back and look how we can be more agile. How can we do the things we've been doing and are successful in a more effective way and more efficient way? Because effectivity and efficiency leads to impact. And then when we do this, mastering it is a very critical stage, because a lot of the times organizations go and start a project, they learn it, and then it's the end and it's finished, and we don't do anything else with that learning process. And then when we start a new project, we start from scratch. It's very important to learn this process and master it so we can repeat it. And replication is a form of scaling, but efficient and effective replication. And at last, we need to be able to anchor this process. It needs to become our second nature, that from the very beginning, when we start a partnership, it's about a lasting and durable impact that is scalable. And when that becomes part of our working ethics, when that becomes part of our corporate culture, our organizational culture, then it anchors and it stays, and we just do it. That becomes the new norm for us. These 3 steps I have identified as part of the scaling. And again, I'm curious to hear if you feel, oh no, something is missing or it's not clear. I'm here to answer your questions on that. When something is anchored in our work, in our behavior, it becomes our second nature. It means that you don't need to think to do certain things in certain way. You just do it. It becomes your habit. And if we change the way we are doing development aid work, then the way that we are doing cross-sector partnerships, and it becomes the new norm, then it is anchored, and then we are constantly running projects that are not only impactful, but scalable. Maybe we can take the lead and have the first coffee after this. I would be more than happy to be connected with you. My name is Somaye Dehban. At the beginning, I showed it. If it wasn't clear, you can check this out. And I'm on LinkedIn and other platforms, so feel free to connect with me there, and we can move towards a shared dream, hopefully.